Today, thank you all for being here. I know it's been a crazy last couple of days. Internet is shot everywhere. Phones are not working. It's been crazy. So I actually slept through the storm, if you didn't know. It was a nice, quite nice, nap. So anyways, today we're going to be talking about what the NAR lawsuit means to you. What have you been hearing? What have you been seeing your sellers and your buyers saying? So we're going to go over all that today. We're going to go kind of quickly over the terms of the lawsuit, and then we're going to talk more about how can we communicate with our buyers? How can we communicate with our sellers? Because there are already a lot of objections that I'm seeing, and I know you all are seeing as well. So who is covered? Every single one of you right here is covered. NAR is getting a bad rep. NAR is getting just, thrown in the mud right now. But NAR is actually protecting us. We pay our NAR dues for them to protect us because we know that TREC protects who? Is TREC protecting us? No, TREC is protecting the consumer. So NAR is the one that is supposed to be protecting us, and they are. So NAR is actually paying out tons of money for us. They are paying out $418 million over time. It's not going to be instantly, but it's going to be over time. Who do you think is getting that money? Is it really the sellers that have brought on this lawsuit? No, it's the attorneys. The attorneys are the ones that are making the big bucks on this lawsuit. As of right now, there's going to be no changes into our membership dues for 2024 and 2025. That scares me. What happens to 2026, 2027? I know that our bills are already expensive when it comes to NAR, HAR, TAR, all that kind of good stuff. So for the next, we've all paid probably 2024 already, but 2025, it's not supposed to change. So when people are dragging NAR through the mud, know that they did protect us and they did settle the lawsuit. They did not say that we did any wrongdoing, but they did pay out to say, yes, get out of our faces. Because we really needed them out of our faces. Okay, so there's some interesting things that are going to be changing, and it's going to be uncomfortable for us. It's going to be different. Unless you were a real estate agent in the 90s, this is going to be brand new for you. Back in the day, there was no such thing as a buyer agent. So I think 1994 is when they changed it and they got the buyer's agents in there. They started with buyer's reps, all that kind of good stuff. So unless you were an agent in 1994, I don't know, I was in fourth grade. I don't know about you guys, but this is something that we have never seen before, okay? The biggest things that it's going to do is it's going to eliminate the offers of compensation where? On the MLS and on anything that is directly impacted with the MLS. Zillow, Realtor.com, all those kind of third-party sites that pull stuff from the MLS, okay? So right now we have a little place in the MLS that we can put compensation for buyer's agents, compensation for sub-agency, compensation for, I don't think they have the non-MLS agents on AHAR. No, they don't. So right now it's staying until, does anybody know when the lawsuit goes into effect, supposedly? August 17th. You cheaters, it's right there. When we go into the MLS right now, it is still there. August 17th is going to be disappearing, okay? The other big thing that's going to be happening is that we are going to have written agreements for people to go see houses when? Before or after? Before. If an agent is telling a buyer after August 17th that they can go show a house without a buyer's rep, they are not in compliance. They are lying, okay? They could get their TREC license taken away. Make sure that if you have a buyer that sells, well, Johnny John just showed me a house and I didn't have to sign something. Let me know their name. I'm going to go report them because they're not being ethical, okay? This includes leases. Anytime that you go show an open house, the only time that it does not apply is when you are holding an open house. That is the only time it does not apply. Okay, so if a buyer tells you, my other agent did not, please let them know that that other agent is probably going to be not following rules in other areas if they are not following rules off the bat. And then all of this stuff must be implemented by the 17th of August. This is still undergoing. Things might change, dates might change, but as of right now, this is when all of these changes are going to have to be implemented to comply with the policies. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about offers of compensation prohibited on the MLS. So we can no longer put it there. It's very easy for us to go and see what they are offering right now. Okay, we all get mad when we see a 2%. We all get really mad when we see a 1%. Rarely do we see a 0%. Has anyone seen a 0% in real life? You have? You have? I've worked with as low as 1%, but I've never had someone offer me 0%. It could happen now. Okay. The only people that can help us are not the sellers, are not the buyers, but who? The other agents. Okay. We have to be a very big beacon of hope for other agents by doing things right. So let's talk more about that. Compensation is still there. It can be negotiated off the MLS. It can be negotiated in your offer contracts. It can be negotiated over the phone. It can be negotiated anywhere else. So what this is supposed to do technically is to ensure that there's transparency and fairness in the marketplace. All this does is give us extra work. There should have always been transparency and fairness in the marketplace unless you were not doing your job correctly. Okay. Commission has always been what? Negotiable. Always. Always. I was always a 5%. I would give a discount. I was always a 5% listing agent because I knew that they were going to buy and sell with me. So I was going to make more money on the other side. Okay. I would always tell them, if there was another agent that was trying to negotiate with them more, I would always be open and say, you know what, they might be less, but I'm going to be doing more work for you. Okay. It's always been negotiable. This is where we get into a really sticky, tricky part. We can still offer sellers concessions online. We've always been able to do that, whether it was a $3,000 seller concession towards carpet or a $5,000 seller's concession towards paint. We've always been allowed to put in remarks that we are offering a seller's concession. That's been a thing for a long time. Well, now what they're saying is you can put more seller's concessions in your listing to show that you are buyer agent friendly. This is where it gets really tricky though.
Hey,
What
Lynn,
if you
are
put,
sharing?
say we got a $300,000 house. Let's make it easy. Commission on that 3%, $9,000. Okay. We put in $9,000 in seller's concession to buyers in the MLS. That buyer is going to get really what? Excited. Because that buyer is thinking, I get $9,000 for my closing cost. I get $9,000 to put towards whatever I want. They're going to get super excited about that. Keith, unacceptable. They're going to get super excited about that. And now we come in and say, oh, no, that $9,000 is mine. Because that means that you're going to be paying your commission from your buyer's rep with that $9,000 to me. It makes sense. It compensates for that 3%. But the buyer's going to see it and be like, I'm so excited. This is so cool. I get all my closing costs paid. Well, no, because your closing cost includes my commission. So now we're getting to the part that we're like, how do we go about that with different listings? How do we maneuver this? How do we do this? So this is annoying to me. If you want to do this, that's fine. But I want to talk more about how we're going to talk to the sellers and tell them that this may end up screwing us in the end because they may think that this is my money. Now I'm going to have to wonder if I'm getting paid any commission, go ask that person, do this, do that, do this. And then it's going to be a mess. Okay. Yes. Yes. So each loan type is going to have a different amount of concessions that they are allowed to use. So on certain loans, you can go up to 3% of the sales price. On certain loans, you can go up to 6% of the sales price. On certain loans, you can go up to 9% of the sales price. You can't get a concession for $80,000 if your loan is for a $300,000 house. Okay, that doesn't, you can't do that. You can have them come off the list price. You can have them, throw in a couple little repairs or whatever to make $80,000, but you cannot ask for more than a certain percentage of that sales price to go to sellers' contributions. So that's a good question. Each loan is different, so we can talk about each loan as well. Now, lending's not my thing. What do I always tell you guys? Stay in your lane. Okay, so don't go try and, negotiate a bunch of money not knowing how much is actually going to be, for your clients, because you could go in and get 6% and be like, yes, we did it. And then the loan only takes 3% of that closing cost. Another thing that we're running into now that lenders have recognized is that VA buyers cannot pay anything towards your commission. Well, they have put that on a halt for now and made some exceptions with that until they can figure out how they're going to technically go about that part. Okay, so I'm not a professional on that. If Dave, your mortgage guy, was here, he would be able to talk to that part of it. But for sure, stay in your lane.
Hey,
Does anybody have any questions on the seller's contributions?
It's still, like you say, it's still confusing.
Mhm.
So if you put in, you can't put a percentage in, so you're gonna have to put it all in. Is what you're saying, or you don't, or just say.
You don't have to put anything in. You can put seller's contributions in, but then it gets confusing for the buyer. So I'm going to suggest, just my suggestion, don't do that. Don't do that. This is one person giving a suggestion. We'll talk about how we will offer compensation in a second, but my suggestion is do not do the seller's contributions unless you're going to do like a contribution for carpet or paint or whatever. That's perfectly fine still, but don't say that the seller's contribution is for payment.
And you're talking about specifically in MLS.
In the MLS. Yes, exactly. People are thinking that they're going to skate around having those phone calls like, I offer 3%, I offer 2%, I offer 1%, because I'm going to put it sneakily in the seller's contributions. That's not the case. Okay. The other thing that is changing is that buyer's tenant agent agreement. Okay. You are going to be now required to come into a written agreement with a buyer before you show the house to them. It does not matter if it's one house. It does not matter if it's 10 houses. There are different agreements now that we're going to look into in a second, but this is supposed to ensure clear communication and understanding of services of compensation. You should have always been explaining services and compensation. This shouldn't be new. At our office, we stress getting that buyer's rep already, right? Ashley, if you're in the mentor program, she teaches you to get that done immediately. So this is not going to be uncomfortable for us. The cool thing is they do have a short version now, because when I hand that 5-page buyer's rep over, doesn't it feel yucky sometimes? Especially when you're just meeting somebody for the first time. Maybe it's a family member and it's not a big deal. Maybe it's a friend and it's not a big deal. But if I'm meeting you for the first time and I'm saying, here's a 5-page buyer's rep, it's kind of icky. It's kind of gross. So now they have a short term or short version and a long version. All right, the short version is 1 page. It's way less scary. It does everything that the long version does. It just doesn't explain it out in that much detail. Okay, I would recommend always getting that longer version if you can. But if you're in a bind, and maybe this is the first time you're ever meeting this person, the first time that you're ever looking at houses with this person, I would recommend maybe going with the shorter version. Okay, this talks about the parties. This is going to talk about the appointments between you and them, Blair Realty Group, or whichever brokerage you're with. And then it's going to talk about the definition of what this agreement means. And then it's going to have This is very different. Well, this isn't different. The next one is different. It's going to have terms. So it begins today. Maybe this is a short term. Maybe it's one day. Maybe you're showing them one house on one day and they feel more comfortable just signing a buyer's rep for one day. Go for it. This may be 6 months. Whatever your buyers are comfortable with signing, let them know that this is not binding you to them forever. Could be a week, could be 5 days, doesn't matter. That term is there and your responsibility to talk about. The biggest thing that is changing are these next couple of boxes, all right? Brokers' obligations. They are now giving us 2 choices because of this new lawsuit. The first one is full service. That's what we've always done, okay? Full service means that they are going to use you. You are going to write them up contracts. You are going to submit offers. You are going to work on their behalf. Full service. The next one is another icky one that I don't like, but it's there. This next one is a showing service. Okay, I don't know if you can see it very well from back there. I don't know if I can zoom in on it, but this right here, this showing service. What this allows you to do is to just open doors for them. But they're going to pay you a fee for just opening doors for them. The buyers or the tenants. This fee is paid immediately. This fee is not something that is out of compensation. So this is where I'm like, ew. Do you think a buyer is going to want to pay you for each house that they see? No. So this one right here is an option, but it says paragraph 678 do not apply. So this one down does not apply. With the access to properties in the market, clients will pay a fee of blank due upon execution of this agreement. So if they have said, hey, let's go see 5 houses today. Okay, 5 houses, let's calculate gas, let's do this. Or maybe I have a calculation per home. Maybe I have a calculation per hour, whatever it is. So I'm going to say, okay, well, I usually charge, let me say I just charge $20 a house. So 5 houses, that's $100 because I know that I'm going to be out with you all day for 5 houses. I'm going to charge you $100 to go show you 5 houses and you have to pay me now.
That seems better for leasing clients than purchasing.
It actually could be something that would work with leasing clients because they look at a million houses and then decide not to lease. I think that is weird. Do you think somebody that is saving up for a down payment, saving up for closing costs is going to be like, here, Lynn, here's $100 for today? I mean, maybe, but I wouldn't pay someone $100 to go show me houses.
For the consumer, there's no way around with that period. Like, even if they go with a listing agent, they're still gonna have to sign this.
Yes, exactly. And we'll talk about that in a minute too, that even if they do go with a listing agent, they're going to have all this signed anyways. Okay, there's no way around this for the consumer, like she just said. Use it if you want.
But that might be going to sign here.
Right, to be more full service.
Keith just said that might compel them to sign a full service. Yeah, exactly. You can pay me each time I go show you, or at the end, we can see what the compensation is, and then we can talk about what you will owe me, what they will owe me from there. If you can get people to agree to that, I mean, that's some extra money that you can make right off the bat. This has to go to the brokerage. So make sure that you're not having somebody do that on the side. So whatever $100 that you're making, it's not a check to you. It's a check to the brokerage. So be careful with that. He said, dang. Yes, Zelle is perfectly fine. Yep. Okay. So then if you do check that box about showing services, you're going to skip 6, 7, 8, and those do not apply to the consumer. All right. If you choose showing service. Yes. All right. So client's obligation, they must work exclusively with this broker during this time. Say that you have a 10-year agreement with a buyer. Can they terminate that at any time? Yeah. Do they have to pay you a fee at any time? No, they don't. unless you did some kind of reimbursable fees, like for photos or anything like that, they don't have to pay you anything. They can terminate. Say you have a 90-day protection period. Do they have to pay you if they go buy another house? If it's like day 60? Actually, no. All they have to do is sign another buyer's rep with another agent, and that null and voids your protection period. So we may think that we're protected with these buyer's reps, but again, we're not. Trek writes these for who? The consumer, not for us. So if you think that you put a 90-day protection period in there and you can come bully your way back when they go and sign another buyer's rep with somebody else, you can't. But say that you do show them a house, they do back out of it, out of your buyer's agreement. Maybe they had shown a new build. New builds aren't getting buyer's reps right now, right? If they go with that house, whose money is it? It's yours if it's during that protection period. So be very careful. Some clients have gotten extremely screwed by doing that and having to pay another agent that they didn't work with. Okay, the biggest change right here, they even put it in a little box. Broker's fee. When earned and payable, clients will pay the broker. Complete all that apply. Either they're going to pay a percentage of the sales price or the lease price, or they're going to pay a certain flat fee. Okay, I don't like flat fees. This is your business, not my business. I'm one person letting you know that I don't like a flat fee. Because say that I am putting my flat fee is $5,000 and then they choose $1 million home. I just lost out on $25,000. Okay. Again, you might want to be that discount agent. Don't be. Please don't be. We have one of our agents right now that decided that they were going to give a huge chunk of money away to their first client. Trying to be nice. New build. Easy peasy. Okay. The next two people that asked to use him have asked for almost all of his commission. You can make exceptions. You can make exceptions to friends and family members, or if you're buying and selling with them, or if it has to make the deal go through, but don't advertise that because you don't want to be known as that commission giver agent. You're doing a lot of work. This is your livelihood. You should get every penny that you are deserved. Okay? So what this is saying is that everything that you are asking for is going to be determined right here, right now. Can this change? Yeah, it can. We can do an amendment to the buyer's rep. There is a pretty little new piece of paper. So everybody that was over here shaking in their pants for BTSAs not being listed on here, we can still get our BTSAs. We're just going to have to sign another document to make it clear to the buyer that we are getting another chunk of money. Okay, so don't get nervous if right here under purchase price you put 3% and then the builder is offering you $10,000 BTSA, bonus to selling agent. That's what that means. So you can always go and amend that. We don't just get 3% and then we're done. That's what we were all scared of when these documents first came out. But now they are saying that you can amend it. Now, the buyer may not agree to that. The buyer may say, I don't want you to get $10,000 extra dollars. That could happen. They're going to have to sign that amendment. So just know that that could be an objection that comes up along the way. Be careful.
It's a new build, why they care? It's not from the builder, not the person, right?
If it's a new build, they may just be stuck in their ways that they're already giving you $15,000. Why am I going to give you $25,000? Or they're going to ask for a piece of it because now a lot of BTSAs, yes, they're disclosed in the contract and they're told and they're advertised and all that stuff. But sometimes having to sign something else saying that, oh, they're getting 10,000 more extra dollars, that's going to put a little bad taste in their mouth. And they may object and say, well, you're making a lot of money already. Why don't we just put some of that towards our closing cost? So again, yay us. Good job, Trek, for protecting the consumer. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad to protect the consumer, but it's just going to be another hoop that we're going to have to go through. Okay, but this can change. Now, say that you do sign it and it is a 3% on your buyer's rep, but they're offering 2%. There's a lot of different things we can do here. Okay. I'm giving you my opinion. Please do what's right for your business. We get into this situation. We now have, let's do that. Let's do that example with $9,000 on a $300,000 house. Okay. If I am making 3% from my buyer's rep, they're offering me 2%. That's $6,000, right? The other $3,000, according to this rep, is coming from whom? The buyer. The buyer's already paying for closing costs. The buyer's already paying for down payment. The buyer's already paying for inspections. All those kinds of fees that are coming up. That's a lot of money. That's a big chunk of money from them. That's scary. It's scary, especially if this is a $300,000 house and this is their first time home buy.
Is it for closing costs? Like will it be paid for the time?
They don't have to come up. They don't have to come up with anything to begin with, but it's going to come off their closing costs. Yes, they'll have to pay it at title. Okay, so say that they're $3,000 under. Me personally, I know that that one buyer can turn into infinite buyers, right? From what? Referrals. Me personally, I am not going to go ask that buyer to bring an extra $3,000 to the closing table. I'm not. That's me personally. But I do understand that this may be your only buyer that month. I do understand that. They have already said that they agree to pay you 3%, and you should be explaining very upfront that this 3% may come all from you, may come half from you, may come nothing at all from you. So this should have already been explained when presenting this buyer's rep. That $3,000 is yours if you want it. Now you have to have the conversation with that buyer that, hey, look, they're offering 2%. We could do a couple of things. We could ask for $3,000 in seller's concessions. And now when that comes out, that can help pay for my closing or for my portion that you owe me. That's fine. You can totally negotiate that in a contract, especially for a house that may have been sitting for a while. $3,000 to that seller may be super easy, but $3,000 to your buyer may be life-changing, right? So if that is something that you want to do in an offer, do it. You can say, hey, the offer came back, they countered, they don't want to pay that extra $3,000. It's going to be included on your closing costs. The buyer may say, okay, cool. I'm okay with that. Great. Or you may say, hey, they came back, they didn't negotiate it. So right now I'm going to go ahead and give you a discount and do 2% because I know that you're going to refer me. I know that what we're doing right here is we're building a relationship. So that $3,000 to me, it may be a lot, but I know that you will pay me back tenfold with your referrals.
And then we go to an amendment to this.
You don't have to amend this if it's 2%. You would just put in your contract that when you tell the title company, it's going to be 2%. Yeah. You don't have to amend this. This is up until a certain amount. Yep. Good question. Okay. Intermediary. This is our last part on this short form. Please, 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 please tell your clients that this is not just you being both sides. Intermediary does not just mean you are representing them on the buy and the sale side in one transaction. Intermediary means that anybody from your brokerage can be on the other side of this deal. So if you check no to intermediary and Jamie comes in and Lena has a property for sale, Jamie's client cannot purchase that property because there's no intermediary here. Be careful letting them know that. That does not mean that you're going to be on both sides. That means that anybody from your brokerage cannot do that. Okay? All right, so that's the short form. You guys all know what the long form looks like. It is pretty much basically all this stuff, just a little bit more info. It protects you a little bit more. Did y'all want to look at the long form or you're good?
The only thing that is if you have the short form, it'll be.
The short form is going to protect you less than the long form because there are a few more things in here that protect you versus the buyer. So on the long form,
So they literally are two separate contracts, period. They're gonna be treated.
They're going to be treated as two different things, but they do the same thing ultimately. But look at here. So here, it may be some additional compensation that they may pay you because you're going to be doing some kind of services other than showing. Here, it has the protection period. So if you go and show that new build, they go and they terminate this contract, they go and buy that new build. Now you're getting your 3% again. So another protection for you, not for the consumer, for you. Trek kind of took out all the protections for you on the long form out of the short form. Does that make sense? So they're still being protected with that short form, but you are not being protected with that short form. So it's not really going to affect commercial listings. The settlement focused more on residential listings, commercial transactions largely unaffected, and written agreements do not apply to commercial transactions. So like you were saying with apartments, we don't have to get those buyers reps for those. Okay, how does it affect the home buyers and sellers? Well, supposedly it's going to preserve their consumer choice in real estate services and compensation. It should have always been that way. Okay. Written agreements help consumers understand, or it's just going to make them more confused. We'll see what it does. And then potentially it could prevent, this is where I'm scared. It could potentially prevent buyers from being able to afford a home. That's what I'm terrified about. If they can't afford it, they're going to go in unrepresented, and then they're going to get screwed ultimately in the end because they are unrepresented. Buyer's agents are so important. The reason that we got buyer's agents back in the 90s is because there were so many lawsuits about, well, the other agent didn't tell me that I needed to negotiate this on inspections, or the other agent didn't tell me that, they didn't disclose to me that this happened, blah, 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 blah. So that's where this came in. I don't see buyer's agents going away. Please don't be scared about that. I don't. But I do see people thinking they're smarter than us and going in by themselves and then ultimately shooting themselves in the foot. So I don't think this is a good thing for either party. But I could be wrong. I could just be not okay with change. So let's talk more about objections. Are these objections or opportunities? Let's talk about that. We want to acknowledge the objections. We don't want to just say, oh, no. Don't talk to me about that. We want to acknowledge them. We want to acknowledge that our buyers and our sellers have these questions. We want to explain the value of our services when we are talking about these objections. And we want to hold true to those values, okay? Don't be a 1% listing agent. Don't. That's yucky. That's an iPhone taker and a picture taker. That's I'm not going to do any marketing for you. No open houses, all that kind of nasty stuff. Don't be it. Know your value. And then be prepared to walk away, guys. Be very prepared. You're going to have a seller that thinks they are smarter than you. Be prepared to walk away from those people. You're going to have a buyer that says, oh no, I want all my money. You're doing a new build. I'm doing you a favor. Be prepared to walk away. All right, here's some objections that you might hear from sellers. I've heard this already over and over and over. I've had probably about 5 potential sellers that have already talked to me about this. And I'm going to say, when I went over what we're going to go over for scripts with you, not one single person put their foot down with me. So know what to say in these situations. So I don't have to pay for a buyer's commission anymore. Why would I pay for someone that's not representing me? And this is so exciting that I don't have to pay a buyer's agent anymore. Okay, how are we going to talk to them? How are we going to use those scripts? And we'll talk about that here in a minute. The buyer's objections. I can't afford to pay a buyer's agent. We used to be able to say, don't worry, honey, you don't have to pay anything. We shouldn't have been saying that, but we did. I know we did. Why don't I just work with the listing agent? I don't want to work with just one agent. When having them sign that buyer's rep. I just want to see a few houses. Okay, well then we'll do a little showing agent fee. I'll just hire an attorney to represent me. Okay, so how would I talk to a seller that tells me that they don't want to pay for a buyer's agent anymore? I sit down with the seller, we get to the compensation, okay? I'm going to say, hey, Mr. Seller, I charge 6%, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to split that with the buyer's agent. I'm going to take 3%. I'm going to give 3% to the buyer's agent. Seller goes, well, I thought we didn't have to pay that anymore. Well, let me talk about this. We've never had to pay that. We've never had to pay a buyer's agent before. But if we don't, we run into a couple of things here, okay? Buyer's agents are going to get paid regardless. So if we are having those buyers pay their buyer's agents, they're having to come up with a huge portion of money on top of down payment, on top of closing cost. So let's say that they owe them $10,000. Now they've got a $10,000 closing cost plus a $10,000 down payment, plus now they're having to pay $10,000 to their buyer's agent. Do you have $30,000 just sitting around? I know I don't. Okay, well, then they could just use me as the listing, or they could just use you as the listing agent. Then they won't have to worry about paying a buyer's agent. Okay. Well, let's go back to talking about losing those people over not paying those buyer's agents. So let's say we have a pool, let's say 100 people. 100 people, maybe 25% of those people have an extra $10,000 lying around. Maybe, let's say 25%. Okay. 75% no. So they call me up and they say, hey, how much are you offering for compensation for a buyer's agent? Oh, zero. My seller doesn't want to pay anything. Okay, thank you. Look, oh man, they don't want to pay. They don't want to pay anything to a buyer's agent. We can go see it, but you're going to have to pay me $10,000. Maybe don't say it as direct as that. Maybe say it a little bit nicer. You're going to have to pay me a little bit more on your closing costs. I'll have $10,000 extra dollars. What are we going to do? Well, we can choose another house that does have an offer of compensation. Okay, let's do that. Look, I have just lost 75% of buyers to my home for not offering compensation. $10,000 for 75% of people getting in my home. If I have 25% of those pool of 100% of people coming to see my home, is my home going to sit on the market longer? Probably. So now my house is sitting on the market for 30 days because I don't have any buyers coming. Oh, but let's drop the price 10,000. Okay. Boop. Now my house has a stigma against it that, ooh, there's something wrong with it. It's been on the market for 30 days. Not this one. It's average right now. Okay. Now it's got something against it. Oh, maybe it's bad. Maybe I don't want to go look at that house now. It's been on the market forever, but nobody else wants it. I don't want it. Okay. Now we've dropped the price again. We're still not offering compensation. So now I have 25% of those people. Oh man, we got to drop the price again. So maybe we drop the price $20,000 and we finally get an offer in where I could have made $10,000 more if I would have paid that listing or that buyer's agent. Definitely something that I would talk to my sellers about. And I have not had one single person tell me, oh, I don't want to. They're like, oh, that makes sense. You may have a great house that is going to go like that. Okay. So that seller may know, like, I don't care about that other 75%. It's going to go just fine. Okay. You're going to see that too. So you have to be ultimately prepared to come back and say, that's okay. I work for you. We can do whatever you want, but I charge this much. And if they say, well, I'm not paying that, you have every right to walk away. Okay. Because this is going to affect your business too when you're the listing agent that pays 0%. Alicia just said, is there a feel about how much the public knows? I will say it's probably 75% have no idea and 25% do. I don't think it's even 50-50. I really don't. Yeah, I really don't. You should have been explaining that, the percentages all along and how we do pay this and how, this is paid to their brokerage and this is what it's for. You should have been doing that already. So if you're doing your job, there's no reason that you need to do anything different. You can't say, have you heard about the NAR lawsuit? If not, let me talk to you about it. And I might say something along the lines of, the NAR lawsuit came about and now, there's a lot of bad rep that we're getting as agents. So I want to let you know that commission has always been negotiable and that's where the NAR lawsuit came from. This is what I charge and just right here. Yes.
I'd rather be more transparent regardless.
Be transparent. Be transparent.
We're hiding anything.
And we aren't hiding anything. I mean, if you are, then you shouldn't be an agent.